I still remember the exact second my world flipped upside down. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat, and my hands started shaking like they had a mind of their own. It was the day I discovered my parents' will, hidden in a stack of paperwork I was supposed to sort out for them, and realized that everything I had ever believed about our family was a lie. My name was barely mentioned, while my brother Eric was set to inherit almost everything. Suddenly, all those years of hard work I'd done to keep them afloat meant nothing. I felt betrayed, blindsided, and more alone than ever before. Hey everyone, before we dive deeper into this wild story, do me a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button to stay tuned for more crazy tales. Smash that like button if you love hearing real-life drama. And drop a comment below telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing where our community is coming together from around the world. Alright, buckle up and keep watching because this tale is about to get way more complicated than just a cut and dry inheritance. I promise, you won't believe where it ends. My name's Jake, and for most of my life I believed in the idea that family came first. No matter what our issues were, I was taught that you never turned your back on your blood relatives. My parents weren't wealthy, but they had a decent home, one that I ended up helping them pay off year after year, so we could keep our family house in decent shape. My brother Eric, on the other hand, was everyone's golden boy. He never held a job for longer than a few weeks, spent most of his time going out late, and basically treated my parents' house like a vacation resort. While I was busting my back paying bills, fixing the roof, making sure the mortgage checks were never late, Eric spent his days gaming in the basement or hitting up random parties. The worst part, my parents didn't just enable him, they seemed to worship him. One ordinary afternoon, I was at my parents' house helping Dad with some paperwork. He had a stack of documents he claimed were too confusing, and since I'm usually the one who handles all that, I agreed to come by. That's when I found a folder labeled Estate Plan and Last Will and Testament. Normally I don't snoop, but it was sandwiched between mortgage statements I was supposed to scan. Figuring it was part of my dad's chaotic stack, I opened it, only to discover something that made my stomach drop. The will stated in painfully clear language that Eric was set to inherit the house, the savings, and nearly every valuable asset my parents had. My name was there, but only in the most generic way, something like, "We love both our sons equally." Yet the actual distribution? Yeah, that said otherwise. Everything of real value was going straight to Eric. You know that feeling where your face goes hot and your chest tightens, but everything around you turns ice cold? That's exactly what happened. I felt betrayed, like I was just some side character in a story that revolved around my undeserving, lazy brother. As I stood there, hands shaking, scanning the words again and again to be sure I wasn't hallucinating, Dad walked in and casually asked if I was done sorting the papers. "Yeah," I said, my voice trembling with anger. "I'm done. In fact, I'm more than done." I confronted both of them right there in the living room. I held the will up for Dad to see, demanding an explanation. His first words? "It's complicated." And then he shot me a look like I was a child who'd found the secret cookie stash. Mom, at least, tried to look apologetic, but what she said next stung even more. "Jake, honey, you'll be fine on your own. Eric, well, he needs more help. We just want to make sure he's taken care of." Taken care of? By handing him the house I helped maintain? By giving him money I basically helped save? A wave of fury hit me, but also a cold sense of realization. They never really saw me as a son who needed support. They saw me as a safety net, a living checkbook who would always be fine. Meanwhile, Eric was the precious baby bird who needed them forever, despite being a grown man. I was so angry I could barely speak. I managed a calm but trembling, "Got it. Thanks for letting me know where we stand." Then I left, ignoring Mom's attempts to stop me. Dad didn't bother chasing after me, and Eric was nowhere in sight, probably oblivious to the chaos he'd just caused. Over the next 2 weeks, I didn't call, I didn't visit. I felt sick to my stomach whenever I thought of them. Had they been planning this all along? Did they ever appreciate the fact that I'd been keeping a roof over their heads? It was like I'd been tricked into playing the good son, while the favorite son got rewarded for doing absolutely nothing. Finally, when their mortgage and other bills started to pile up without my support, they reached out. Dad texted me curt and cold. "The property taxes are due." Not a single, "How are you, son?" or "Hey, let's talk." Just a transactional demand as though I was still their personal ATM. I typed back, "Ask Eric to pay. Isn't it his house now?" The calls and texts poured in. My parents went from annoyed to desperate in record time. They accused me of being a bad son, of abandoning them. Eric chimed in with his own brand of entitlement, saying I needed to stop being dramatic and just help out like I always did. But I refused to budge. For the first time in my life, I was standing up for myself. Things escalated when they showed up at my apartment without warning. My building's front desk called to say my parents and brother were there, insisting it was an emergency. But when I went down to face them in the lobby, it was the same broken record. We need your help. Don't let us lose the house. You're so selfish for turning your back on family. I felt my anger ignite again, but I stayed calm on the surface. The selfish one? I asked, my voice echoing in the lobby. Really? All these years I've covered your bills, kept up the house, done the groceries, paid your taxes. How is it selfish to finally say enough when you've left me with nothing? You made it clear in your will that Eric is your star player. Let him carry the team now. They started to argue, claiming it was all a big misunderstanding. But I'd seen it in black and white, legally documented. If they wanted to pretend otherwise, that was on them. I told them firmly to leave, ignoring Eric's half-hearted attempts to call me a drama queen. I was done. No more shouting, no more guilt trips. I wanted them out of my life if they couldn't respect me. I blocked their numbers, thinking maybe that would at least give me some peace. But oh, how wrong I was. If they couldn't get me to cave in person or through texts, they'd do it publicly. Suddenly, my Facebook feed was full of passive-aggressive posts about ungrateful children and sons who abandon their poor parents. Eric added his own spin, painting himself as the noble caretaker who just wants our family to stick together. The hypocrisy was unreal. I decided to respond once, just once, to set the record straight. I wrote a detailed post explaining all the years of financial support, all the sacrifices I'd made. I mentioned the will, how it was set up entirely in Eric's favor, and how I was simply refusing to pay anymore for a family who saw me as a doormat. Then I blocked them on social media too. I was done feeding the trolls, especially if they happened to share my last name. A month passed without much contact. I felt freer than I had in years, but a storm was brewing. One night I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Normally I would ignore it, but something told me to pick up. It was my parents' attorney. "Jake," he said, sounding stressed, "I understand you've had a falling out with your family, but something has come up regarding your parents' estate. You need to be aware of some details that just surfaced." I felt my stomach clench. The only estate details I knew involved me being cut out, so what else could possibly matter? The attorney said that while Eric was set to inherit the bulk of the property, there were numerous hidden debts tied to the house. Back taxes, unpaid liens, even a second mortgage I didn't know about. Eric, effectively, was inheriting a financial black hole. "There's more," the attorney went on, clearing his throat. "Your parents changed some details last minute. They set aside a small portion of cash for you, less than Eric's share, obviously, but it's separate from the property and any associated debts. You might actually come out better off here, financially speaking." I was speechless. Me, the son who was practically erased from the will, ended up with the only inheritance that wasn't drowning in debt? The attorney explained that the house, once considered an asset, now came with a mountain of unpaid bills that might force Eric into bankruptcy if he couldn't settle them. Meanwhile, my portion was modest but completely debt-free. Apparently, my parents assumed Eric would never have to shoulder any financial responsibility because they counted on me to keep paying. The money they set aside for me was so small they never bothered attaching any strings to it. They likely figured I'd just keep pumping money into the house for Eric's sake. But now that I'd cut them off, Eric was stuck with a property that was worth far less than the debts tied to it. A few days later, I got another call, this time from Eric himself. He sounded panicked, practically begging me to meet up. Against my better judgment, I agreed to grab coffee with him, mostly to hear what new level of audacity he'd sunk to. He was already sitting in a corner booth when I arrived, looking thinner and more nervous than I'd ever seen him. Gone was the smug, laid-back expression. In its place was raw desperation. "Jake," he said, voice trembling, "I need your help. The house is in serious trouble. There are back taxes, some big loan from years ago. I can't handle it on my own." I leaned back in my seat and studied him. "Why are you telling me this, Eric? You're the inheritor, remember? You told me to grow up and stop being dramatic. Now it's your turn to grow up and pay for what's yours." He swallowed hard. "They never told me about these loans. I didn't even know half of this stuff existed. The mortgage is in default, the property taxes are way behind, and collectors are calling the house every day." "Again," I said, my voice calm, "that's your problem. You wanted to be the favorite child, the one who got everything handed to him. Now you have to deal with everything, including the debts." He looked at me with watery eyes. "Jake, please, you're the only one who understands how all this financial stuff works. I can't do it by myself." I thought back to all the times Eric sat around doing nothing while I patched up the place and paid the bills. All the times I'd wanted him to step up, but he didn't. And now, ironically, he was begging me to come save him because our parents had dumped a massive load of financial ruin right in his lap. I took a deep breath. "I'm sorry," I said, genuinely meaning it. "But I'm not your fixer anymore. If you need help, you can hire a financial advisor, or maybe sell the house. That's your responsibility now." Eric's face fell, and he slumped in the seat like a defeated child. Part of me felt a sting of pity, but I knew this was the necessary wake-up call he'd never had. Without a backbone, Eric was just going to keep repeating the same mistakes, and I wasn't about to dig him out yet again, not when he had shown me zero respect or gratitude in the past. In the weeks that followed, Eric and my parents tried every trick in the book, calling me from burner phones, spamming my work email, even showing up at my door again, claiming they'd do anything if I'd just help them get out of this financial mess. But I held my ground. I blocked them at every turn, ignoring their pleas. The more I refused, the nastier they got, accusing me of wanting them to fail, as if this entire chain of events wasn't their own doing. Meanwhile, I used the modest inheritance I received to start fresh. It wasn't enough to buy a house of my own, but it gave me a solid cushion to invest in myself. A new apartment, some savings, maybe even a small business venture down the line. For the first time in my life, I could make financial decisions purely for me, without worrying about covering someone else's mortgage or taxes. Word got around that Eric was struggling to pay off the massive debts. Rumor had it he was looking to sell the house, but because of all the liens and overdue taxes, the place was nearly impossible to offload for a decent price. The golden child found himself in a tarnished kingdom, learning a lesson the hard way. If you never learn to stand on your own feet, you'll fall the second your crutch steps away. My parents? They'd likely keep blaming me for all their hardships, but it didn't matter anymore. I realized that family should be about mutual respect and genuine love, not manipulation, guilt, or financial control. The second they turned me into their wallet, they lost the right to call me selfish for wanting more than just scraps of affection. These days, I'm focused on building a life for myself. I'm exploring new hobbies, meeting new people, and enjoying the feeling of coming home to a place that's truly my own, free from looming bills I didn't create. And you know what? I sleep better at night because I know I'm not responsible for bailing out people who never appreciated my help in the first place. Was it worth burning bridges with my family? Honestly, I think the bridges were already on fire long before I walked away. They just never thought I'd leave. Now, for the first time, I'm living on my terms. And it feels good, really good. And hey, if you made it this far, thanks for sticking around till the end of the story. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more unbelievable stories. Don't forget to smash that like button if you enjoyed this roller coaster, and definitely drop a comment below, letting me know which city you're tuning in from. I love seeing how far our family here can reach. Stay strong, and remember, you deserve people in your life who value you, not just what you can offer.